The VGRT Gaming Podcast, episode 701, recorded on October 26th, 2023.
Hello and welcome to the 701st edition of the TD Gaming Podcast and 534th episode of Video Game Roundtable. I am TJ Denzer.
I am Scott Dirk.
And I am Jonah Falcon.
The VGRT Gaming Podcast focuses on game news from around the industry.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question, TJ. Have you been playing City Skylines 2 yet?
I have not. I want to get in there, but I had too much other stuff to do this week.
Okay. It is as frame rate stuttery as people say. It definitely has problems graphically. But from what little I've played so far, it's really, really deep in terms of the gameplay mechanics. One of the things I like is that now all of the electricity, water, and wastewater are automatically underneath the roads. So all you need to do is connect to the roads in order to have them connected to the various systems. So oddly enough, you don't need to have any electricity attached to the. Well, I guess it's not so unusual to the pipe that spews out the sewers. One thing that I noticed, which is going to be a real pain, is that now the game takes into account wind. And now you have to be careful that all the nasty stuff, like the factories and all that, are not downwind of your residential properties.
That makes sense.
Yeah, usually you want to keep them far away from there.
So you have to look at the wind to make sure that you don't make a mistake.
That's really funny.
Yeah. I haven't gotten very far in it. I don't know how much I'll be playing it because as much as I'm enjoying it, it's still a little bit of a pain to play. They said that, well, I think we have it in the news anyway about what they're doing with it. Yeah. There are still little things that really make me chuckle. Like, you can look at all of your citizens, and one of them, I clicked on a citizen walking his dog, and his dog had a name, so apparently all the pets have names too. So everybody's doing stuff. Now, we talked about a while ago how, you have adults, you have teens, you have children. And one of the interesting things is that when you start your city, you may see them building stuff, but until they actually get inside, they're not population. So it's sort of like, you'll have your greens, and then the buildings will start, being construction. You see these cranes and stuff. But your population remains zero, and I had to wait for people to actually come in the roads and drive up to their homes and get in them before they counted as population.
Huh.
It's really cool. Another thing that I think is new, I don't know if it was patched into it, but now, you know how you have different, when you really need residential, you have the residential bar going up and stuff like that? Now you have the density bar, each of bars for density. So you might see light residential this much, medium residential this much. So now they've subdivided it into that exactly, they don't want light, they need some medium dense residential now. So you have it down to that as well. So when you need to start making the medium residential. One of the amusing things is that they still have Twitter. Basically, their Twitter version, and it's not X because it's a blue bird. So, the other thing is that, speaking of cities, now you also have the radio station actually has the announcers talking about stuff going on in your city too.
That's a good feature. I always like to have that kind of radio thing going on, making the city feel more alive and like what you're seeing is what's going on.
Yeah. Also, every place has its own address, so sometimes they'll say, hey, come to our new auto body shop here on 104 Cherry Street. And you can click on 104 Cherry Street, and it'll take you to that auto body shop. So, yeah, it's really, really dense, and I think having a frame rate was the last thing that they were considering. So, and here's the thing. I knew it was going to be like this like a month ago when they said, oh, yeah, we're delaying the console version for a couple of months. That told me, oh, yeah, they don't have this down yet, and the PC version is probably going to have problems too. So it's not a secret that it wasn't a surprise to me that it was, janky like this. I mean, we talked about last time. They said, well, you know what? When it launches, prepare for some jank. We talked about that last week, but yeah, it is real. On the other hand, it's really, really good, and I can't wait to, because things don't unlock until you get a population. Like, you can't unlock hospitals or waste, trash can waste and stuff like that, or morgues until you get a certain population level, which isn't too high, but it takes a long time. Even if you have it on fastest speed, it seems like it's still slow in building, and I believe that's because of all the mechanics that are in it.
Yeah, nice. And some of the stuff that my colleagues have been talking about doing with the game since it came out is really just fun to listen to. I learned that you can actually build a surplus of water and power and then sell them to profit your city.
Yeah, the reverse is true too. There is a power line that you can connect to if you want to, in which if you need energy, they will sell it to you.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. This movie is very generous with the money. It is very generous with the money, even with normal play. And I like that. It's kind of frustrating. Oh, I can build a hospital now, but I can't afford a hospital.
Yeah, and it's the other stuff too. One of my buddies was talking about how he built a bus station, but not enough people were using the bus, so he created a intentionally bad traffic situation where they would use the bus for commerce more than they would use cars because of it.
Yeah, so like I said, I haven't had much time to really delve into it because I've had other stuff on my mind. As a matter of fact, I've stopped playing Starfield and started playing State of Decay 2 more because they had some new updates, which added some interesting twists to the game. What have you been playing, TJ?
I was playing Alan Wake 2 for review this week.
Oh, okay.
And it has just come out. My review is up now. And that game, I was worried that it wasn't going to be enough of a different flavor to stand out among all the other good horror games that have come out in 2023. It's a trip. It's a trip in a way I didn't expect at all. And it's having played so many of Remedy's games at this point, it's also a great evolution of all the things that they've been doing for years.
Yeah, they had the granny from Ghostbusters.
They still have
the librarian from Ghostbusters, I mean.
They still have the very surreal kind of transitional shifts between live action segments and gameplay. They still have the sort of TV drama serials running in the background that sort of
Of course they do. It's Remedy Games. What did you expect?
Sam Lake is still a character, still has a character insert in this one. It's not just unsettling and spooky on all fronts and does a great job of handling building dread and terror, but it's also such a love letter to what Remedy has been doing for years. And it's really incredible how it all came together to create sort of a different flavor of horror from the stuff that we've seen this year.
Yeah, and they, like I said, they have the librarian from Ghostbusters in it.
Yeah, and
that old granny ghost.
One of the coolest things that I saw it do, you have for the two characters that you play in the game are Saga Anderson, who's an FBI agent, and of course Alan Wake. And they both have mind palace setups where you go into their mind, you look at the details of what's going on, and you can sometimes mess with them. Alan eventually gets the ability to take concepts or locations that he learns about in the world and he can put them together, mix and match to open up paths for himself through a situation. And when it happens, you go back to the gameplay, and you might be at a train. Missing FBI agent into the situation, and suddenly that scene shifts in real time into a police crime scene investigation. And it's just so incredible to see it in action as you play through the game. These shifts of surrealness and reality and fake and everything contorting as the story plays out.
Yeah. How about you, Scott? What have you been playing?
I've just been playing Minecraft and haven't been playing anything else right at the moment.
Okay. We're going to move on to quick news. Star Wars Dark Forces Remaster is coming to Steam in February, so looking forward to that. And this is with Kyle Katarn. And this game's version of how the Death Star plans were stolen. Screw the movie. This is how it actually happened.
I did not know that Kyle Katarn goes on to be the Jedi in Star Wars Jedi.
Oh, yeah. He learns that he starts off as Han Solo. He becomes Luke Skywalker. Actually, that's not true. He starts off as Han Solo. He becomes Obi-Wan because he actually meets Luke in one of the Jedi Knight games.
Yeah. That's such an interesting thing because I had played Dark Forces and I knew about Jedi Knight, but I hadn't played the Jedi Knight games. And to learn that character has such a long arc over the course of several games was really interesting.
He's one of the forgotten protagonists of Star Wars that a lot of people have forgotten.
That's a shame. So I liked the Jedi Knight games, and he was an interesting character.
Yeah, poor Raven Software. They're stuck doing Call of Duty. Hopefully, Microsoft will set them free. Actually, that's one of the things that I learned. It's something I already knew that they were going to do, but they reaffirmed it. Is they're going to each studio and saying, "Hey, what do you want to make?"
Yeah,
definitely hopeful.
And then today we saw some news about they shifted up the leadership a bit, and they're going to be having some studios answering directly to, I guess, they basically have Microsoft or Xbox executives acting as the liaisons for some of these studios like Bethesda and Activision Blizzard now, which is a good idea because then you find out, because then there'll be hopefully those conversations will happen where we'll get to see games that haven't seen the light of day for a long time come back.
Yes, I agree.
I know you're just thinking Vicarious Visions, set them free.
Yes.
Set them free.
That's definitely one of them.
Set Raven Software free. Can you imagine a new Soldier of Fortune game? I wonder how many people remember that IP. That was the first-person shooter that went hard on the dismemberment, being able to shoot off body parts. Shoot their leg off, shoot their arm off. But anyways, we're going to move on to game news. Xbox had their Xbox Partner Preview on Xbox Wire the other day. And we can go in this in any order you like. I'm going to go first with Still Wakes the Deep, which looks like yet another game by the Chinese Room that's really creepy. This one takes place in the middle of the ocean. I think you're on it looks like an oil rig, one of those deep sea oil rigs, and then there's something supernatural happening.
I have not seen what the Chinese Room can do. I hear about them all the time, and I hear that they have great puzzle and adventure game design, and I just haven't had a chance to sit down and have a look at it.
Really? You haven't seen the Chinese Room?
I'm looking at their games right now, and it's just I hear about these games all the time, and it's just I've never had a chance to play any of them. The closest I've ever come to playing them.
You never played Dear Esther?
Games.
You never played Dear Esther? You never played Amnesia: Machine for Pigs?
The only one I've come close to playing is Amnesia: Machine for Pigs.
What's interesting is that they just added Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 as something that they're working on now. One of many developers who are working on Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. And I will say this, if the Chinese Room is the one who's working on Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, I say yes, please, let them do it.
But I hear about these other games literally all the time. Dear Esther,
Everyone's gone to the Rapture, yeah.
Everyone's gone to Rapture, yeah. Well-known studio. Someday I just need to have a look at what they do because they sound very good.
Did you see the trailer for Still Wakes the Deep, or actually is the gameplay trailer?
I didn't get a chance to see it.
Really? Oh, you got to check it out. It is really effective, even just as a trailer. You can see why they did the Amnesia Machine. It's basically them doing Amnesia Machine for pigs, really. I mean, it was that kind of creepiness.
Nice.
So I know that you highlighted Manor Lord, Scott, and I'm with you. And I'm shocked to learn that there's only one developer on that. There's only one person who's developing that game. Yeah. It's basically their version of, it's kind of a cross with Total War and a city building game.
Yeah, like a feudal SimCity game, but you have a Total War and fighting and I guess building up your citizens and your different buildings.
Yeah, apparently
beautiful environments.
They apparently there was a demo that was released on Steam a while ago, so you can actually test it out. But I'm really looking forward to this. This is right up my alley. There's too few games that are like this.
I think it looks like a fun game. I could enjoy this one too. I like the strategy, and I always like city building.
Yeah. They also showed off Metal Gear Solid Sigma Snake Eater using the Unreal Engine 5, and it looks really, really good.
Yes, it does. There was a severe lack of Ocelot in that entire trailer. That said, I'm really excited for that because Metal Gear Solid 3 is probably my favorite of the entire series. I think it was probably the best for a lot of reasons. And like it's strange to think of it without Kojima leading the project because like that guy had a lot of input into like the visuals, the story, the narrative, the unfortunate horniness, like all the bad with the good. But and I wonder, Konami has been like so far very hit or miss on everything it's done with gaming in these last few years. And it's going to be odd to see. It's going to be interesting to see if they can pull off Kojima's level of effort without him.
Well, this isn't exactly like they're making a game from the. Well, they are making the game from the ground up with the Unreal Engine, but it's not like they're working from scratch. You know, it's not like they're doing Silent Hill 8 or something.
But are they going to keep the inherent weirdness of it all intact? Like, is Ocelot gonna jump in front of Snake and then make cat noises at him that call the rest of his soldiers up? Is he gonna juggle revolvers and make you pick one? Is there a man that's just gonna be covered in bees that shoots bees at you because bees are his power?
You see, the problem is that this is being developed by the Konami Digital Games division, which tells me nothing. It tells me nothing. Yeah. So I have no idea who's actually working on it.
It's one thing to emulate Kojima's weirdness. It's another thing to actually capture it.
Then we have Like a Dragon, Infinite Money.
They introduced an Animal Crossing style game mode to this.
Yeah, that was what I was going to point out. It's Itchy. He's on a Hawaiian island and he's just building stuff. It's just the Itchy games for Yakuza are proving to be the weird and wacky ones, and they're the ones I'm attracted to.
Like I can get down with Animal Crossing style antics in Yakuza Land. It's such an odd thing. Like what? I appreciate it. I appreciate them stretching their creative chops and just being like, let's try some crazy things.
I mean, the game that came out, like a Dragon Ishin, is basically, you know, just Yakuza in the Edo period. You know, same everything is a regular Yakuza game. At least the ones with Ichi are just batshit crazy. At least the two games that he's been in so far.
Yeah. And this is going to be the one where, like, my understanding is this is going to be the one where Ichi and
Ichi and what? You're having a lot of...
I saw him, he captured, like, a Animal Crossing bug. I didn't know if that was just somebody making a meme or if that was the actual game.
No, that's the actual game.
That's a real thing in the game now.
Oh, wow.
Here's the thing. Like a Dragon, the first Like a Dragon was basically him envisioning himself in a Dragon Quest universe. You know, his entire mental state is a Dragon Quest RPG. Looks like now his entire mental state is Animal Crossing. Hey, and here's the thing. If Itchy is going to keep on, you know, riffing on different games, you know, making parody of games, I'm all for that. Why not? I mean, maybe next time he'll do a riff on, I don't know, maybe he'll do a riff on DDR and it'll be a dancing game.
That's a good point. I'm trying to think of what genre they should tackle next.
Oh God, no, not any Yondir simulator or.
Hey, like it looks really fun. It looks like they're having a good time, like making this game too, because everything about it is just over the top and zany and weird.
So is the original game with Itchy. So it's staying within its bounds. Let's talk about the finals. So the finals, I was the entire time I was watching the trailer say, "Oh, finally, someone brought back Monday Night Combat," and people seem to forget that and Demigod were the first types of games of its ilk. You know, the looter, the League of Legends style game, except as shooters. Because they both had creeps and they both have, you know, teams and stuff like that. And the finals, you know, apparently, you know, it's basically taking Monday Night Combat, and every time you kill somebody, they turn into a shower of gold coins. It looks like it's not taking itself seriously either, and that's basically what that genre needs to.
Yeah, for sure. And if they keep adding strange things to it and doing funny little like twists and subversions of different genres, that's fun too. Yeah. Eventually we're going to get a Like a Dragon that's like survival horror, but it's just him beating up weirdos.
Speaking of which, I really don't want to talk about Ark Survival Ascended. I really don't care. And it's not because I don't, you know, if you like that game, that's fine, but I am just over the developer. They're just skeezy, and I don't like talking about them.
RoboCop Rogue City has looked strangely good.
Yeah, the only thing that turns me off is that these RoboCop games completely lose the idea of what RoboCop is, and he's not supposed to be a hero. He's supposed to be a symptom of a fascist government who thinks that shooting is this solves every problem.
Right.
And with current events, you know, apparently that's not true. So. Anyway.
Yeah, you don't want people to just be like, "Whoa, cool robot."
And the thing is, I'm wondering if this game will actually understand what Paul Verhoeven was going for. I doubt it. I don't think subtlety is on the mind of these people. Whoever they got to play Peter Weller, they're doing an okay job. They're doing a good Peter Weller impression.
Yeah.
But I swear, you know, I'm getting tired. Oh yeah, RoboCop at 209 and crime. Okay, we get it. Do something new. Anyways, we're going to move on to the next news item. Go ahead, TJ.
Cities Skylines 2 studio promises performance issues can and will be fixed. A few days before the launch of Cities Skylines 2, Paradox Interactive issued a warning about the game's performance, specifically that it might be a little less than ideal, especially on lower-end hardware. Sure enough, this was our experience. Random FPS dips, slowdown and hitches, and sometimes complete freezes that lasted a few seconds, along with graphical glitches and outright crashes. The bigger the city, the worse the problems. In a post-release plans and goals update posted today, developer Colossal Order said that Cities Skylines 2 is built for the future with modern hardware in mind, essentially repeating the statement that it made in the pre-release performance warning, but committed to improving the situation in future updates, and importantly, assured players that the issues can be fixed. The studio has identified some issues tied to certain hardware setups that yielded unexpected results, and said it is now working on updates that aim to make specific improvements. such as removing stutters, generally caused by some synchronization condition in the simulation, optimize and balance GPU performances by reducing the number of stuff, and then pushing CPU's optimizations that are not already done as we come across in this process. Colossal Order said that the upcoming patches will largely improve the game's performance at default settings, but also warned fans of high frame rates that its target is a steady 30 FPS. There's no word at this point when the first City Skylines 2 update is expected to arrive. It actually, I do believe, arrived today.
Okay. Here's the thing. When people said it is steady 30 FPS and all these gamers just lost their minds. And it's like, this is not Counter-Strike. We don't need 120 frames per second. 30 frames per second on a city simulation is fine. And it's a lot harder to do this than it is for a shooter which hides its assets and just loads it as it needs it. Even games like Red Dead Redemption 2, you think that you're seeing the entire... No, you're not. You're not. Because the game knows how to hide the rest of the geometry behind, hills and all that stuff. You can't do that with City Skylines. This is a game which you're going to be zooming up, zooming down, looking at the entire city at once, and it's going to be doing all these calculations. So it's a completely different beast.
And the more calculations you add, the more it has to work. That has always been the thing about City Skylines. That was the thing with the original City Skylines when it first came out. Sure, it would work fine when you had your city down at a small neighborhood level, but once you reached Metropolis, that thing chugged.
Yeah. And also, I zoomed out and I got to the button which says, "Oh, here, this is the button you can use to purchase more land to build on." And then I saw how small my square was in the mass of this larger square, and I was thinking, "Oh, Jesus Christ."
Yep.
My city can become gigantic, and it's just going to eat my computer alive.
Yeah, and we did see a patch drop today that talked about some of these optimization issues. They made quite a few different optimizations to the game, including optimized stutters when buildings would spawn or level up, meaning when they shift over to the next level of building, you're not going to get as much slowdown when that happens, in mass. And there's a bunch of other stuff that fixed crash after upgrading the wind turbine, fixed crashes when car crashes have
I haven't seen those yet.
Car with trailer. And it's just it's clear that they are dedicated to future proofing this thing. I think, and I actually read one of their things for not delaying this game and instead going ahead and putting it out the way it was is that a lot of this stuff wasn't stuff that they felt their core audience was going to care about, and they didn't want to cheat people out of the release day that they told them.
No, that's entirely not true, because apparently a large fan base does care about it.
Well, sure, their point was that they didn't feel that the performance issues were so bad that people would be more angry if the game was delayed further.
There were people that are angry at Starfield, not realizing that they were playing it off a hard drive, regular hard drive, and not a solid-state drive. That, yes, the game would have problems loading when it's expecting a solid-state drive and it gets a hard drive. It's you really have to make sure. I'm thinking about upgrading my computer from having 16 gigabytes of RAM to 32 gigabytes of RAM. And it isn't because of City Skylines, but it's just that, I may need to upgrade my computer.
Yeah, and I'm the performance issues that I've seen make me cautious about trying to play this on my laptop.
Oh God, no, don't.
I think I can wait a bit.
Actually, you know what?
Wait for a couple more patches to launch.
You know what I'm going to try? I'm going to try playing this on a really low resolution, 1080p, and setting all the graphic options to medium, just to see how it runs and how it looks. I don't think it'll be that much different. Although a lot of people are mocking, why do you need a motion blur? And I didn't understand it until I did the zoom in, zoom out. I said, oh, that's why they need a motion blur, because it looks really strange if you don't have it when you're zooming in or zooming out.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So, anyways, we're going to take the next item. Go ahead, Scott.
Alrighty. PlayStation 5 Slim Disk Drive seems to require internet connection to install. This is from Eurogamer. Sony's new PlayStation 5 disk drive add-on, used with the upcoming PS5 Slim console, will require an internet connection to pair the device during installation. The detail is listed on boxes for the new PS5 Slim, which have begun popping up in the wild ahead of the November launch in the US. Internet connection required to pair disk drive and PS5 console upon setup, the box warns in photos shared online today. Sony may want to use an online check-in to ensure the PS5 disk drive is an officially licensed peripheral rather than any kind of disk drive that could be enabled piracy.
Or any other disk drive that a third-party manufacturer might make, and Sony doesn't want to give up that money.
But it's a usual thing with a lot of hardware being proprietary. However, it also adds an online step to playing disk-based games that otherwise would not require an internet connection, and begs the question of what happens when Sony turns its authentication server off or it's offline for some other reason. This has been something that is worried for PS3.
10 years from now, is Sony really going to keep supporting the PS5 and doing online checks? How about 20 years from now?
Yeah.
Could you imagine if you had to verify an NES's cartridge drive before you could actually use it? Like, you can't use it. There's no NES online, so you can't use your NES.
Yeah, that really is terrible. I remember PS3, they were talking about losing support there and not being able to play the PS3 games that you have, and it's really frustrating. You can't even play these old consoles now. That's why I'm staying on Steam, because at least my game will keep working 10 years from now. I could play Skyrim, no issue. I could turn it on right now and play it, and there'll be no, having to authenticate or whatever. It just goes.
And Valve did say, if for whatever reason Steam goes out of business, this was back in 2004, they say, well, you can just download all your games onto whatever medium you want, and they're yours. I mean,
Eurogamer has contacted Sony for more details on how this interconnection will work and reasons for it being required.
Oh, by the way, this might actually be breaking a law, because from what I read, there's some laws that prohibit this sort of thing in which you cannot gatekeep what's called content from a user. I'd have to look it up, but I think it's an obscure DCMA law that this could be violating.
Yeah, it seems a little.
By hardware, by the way.
It seems more than a little invasive to have a piece of hardware that requires an online connection in order to activate and work from then on. And like the idea that that if you don't have that internet connection, you just have a brick until you do. It's stupid. That's really stupid. You don't pay the money for something for it to just not work if I don't know.
Sony invented the rootkit. Just remember that. Remember that rootkit? If you put your CD in, oh dear.
The other thing I've heard is Sony is scared of people using the disk drive port for to hack the console or something like that. But even then, that doesn't. I don't really care that much. That doesn't really justify such invasive and people
are people who want to hack your system will hack it. I mean, that's not going to stop them. They crack open the console. What are you going to do? Make the console not work if like a pinball machine and it goes tilt? Oh, you can't use it. You jammed it. We think you were trying to open it. So you can't use your thing anymore. It's bricked.
And what happens in 7 years when Sony's already moved on to like the PS6 and discontinued PS5s, and that server might be turned off someday? You just have if you get your hands on a new one, you just can't do anything with it because the server is off.
They don't care. They want you to play their new games. And if you want to play the old games, wait for them. You just buy it like Nintendo forces you to buy The Legend of Zelda 500 times.
We're getting to the point where even having a disk drive doesn't mean anything. You're basically just putting the disk in there so it can connect to the internet and realize that you have a license to play that game.
The fortunate thing is that a lot of Microsoft started leading the charge into having all their games on Steam. Sort of like Sony is like forced to do it. So at least you'll have the PC versions of those games. And, the only thing you have to worry about is, will it run on Windows 10, 11, 12, whatever the OS system is?
Yeah, that's no good. Like, yes, you're right. I'm glad that having to be competitive has forced Sony to put some of its PlayStation titles on Steam.
Yeah, you just have to wait a couple of months for it, but,
And even then, you might get like a really bad port, like we saw with the Horizon Zero Dawn.
Wasn't it?
Was a pretty rough port when it first arrived.
Wasn't The Last of Us that had
Steam.
The Last of Us was having a rough time as a PC game?
It also had performance issues. I think the only one that I heard of that didn't was Ratchet and Clank and God of War.
Well, Spider-Man runs pretty well from the Epic Games Store. That's funny because you have it on Steam, you have it on Epic Games Store, but you're not going to see it on Good Old Games.
Yeah.
There's no way in hell they'll allow a game without any DRM on it to be released. We'll move on to the next item. Xbox sees record-breaking Q1 gaming revenue, and this comes to us from Eurogamer. Microsoft has detailed the earnings for its first quarter in its 2024 fiscal year, pointing to a record-breaking Q1 for Xbox gaming service, despite a 7% drop in hardware sales. Over the course of Microsoft's Q1 2024, which covers July 1st to the 30th of September, Xbox generated $3.9 billion in gaming revenue, equating to a 9% year-on-year increase, in which the company attributed to strong performance from first-party titles and Game Pass. Not coincidentally, they had the record-breaking Q1 encompassed to the long-awaited launch of Bethesda's Starfield, which surpassed 10 million players in its first few weeks of release. By the way, for a game that was on Game Pass, it sold like 3 to 4 times more than Spider-Man 2. And it's like people are worried that Game Pass is going to leech from sales. There's a reason why Microsoft decided to start selling its games on Steam. There are people who don't have Game Pass, but they wanted to play Starfield, said, hey. And it's like, I see all these negative videos about Starfield. It's like, oh, it actually did extremely well. And blah, 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 more business talk. The one thing that worries me is that Microsoft did have a huge profit, but they sold less hardware, which makes me worried, again, about having disc hardware and being able to buy games instead of just have them on Game Pass. I mean, I love Game Pass, but, it's worrying, all this digital stuff.
Yeah, it's like, and despite even all that, like, it's going to keep continuing to grow. It's going to keep. They're not going to back off of this.
No, and I don't want them to. I mean, I love the fact that all these day one games are coming to Game Pass, but I do not want to see physical sales go away. And fortunately, there's plenty of people who aren't wealthy or don't have access to internet who are still going to want disc-based games.
Yeah. I think that there will always be a demand for physical media, even despite the fact that it has declined so much, because, like, the fact of the matter is groups like Limited Run are still thriving out here.
Speaking of physical media, take the next item, TJ.
Oh, no. Hogwarts
yes.
Legacy. Hogwarts Legacy Switch Day 1 update is larger than the game's cartridge size.
I don't have black characters.
Portkey Games has provided additional details about the size of Hogwarts Legacy on the Nintendo Switch, including the game's Day 1 patch. After releasing across other platforms earlier this year, the Switch version of Hogwarts will finally launch next month. The game will be made available both digitally and physically on Nintendo's hybrid platform and on the game's official support page. File sizes have been revealed. According to Warner Brothers, the game will receive a major Day 1 patch, which will weigh in at roughly 8 gigabytes. This means that this update will be larger than the actual game on the cartridge, which is approximately 7 gigabytes, and those playing the game digitally will need to download roughly 15 gigabytes of data in order to install the main game in the update. Quote, for both our deluxe and standard edition, the cartridge size is approximately 7 gigabytes. Players should plan to accommodate for an additional 8 gigabytes of space to allot for the needs of our anticipated Day 1 patch. If you decide to get an extra language pack, you should plan for an additional 1.5 gigabytes of download per language.
Yeah, the Switch 2 can't come fast enough.
Yeah.
I mean, see, this is what we're talking about when, you have the physical game, Hogwarts, but apparently only half the game. Well, maybe it's, I mean, 8 gigabytes worth is going to have to be downloaded. So you're never going to have a complete physical cartridge of this game, and that's the unfortunate part of
It's not only that.
physical media being under threat.
If the Switch had a real hard drive, that actually had space, this would not be an issue. Because there's going to be people who are going to have to decide what to delete off their Switch in order to play this game.
Yeah.
I look at the fact that this is WB, and I also look at Mortal Kombat 1 and how it looked on the Switch just a month ago. And this makes sense. Warner Brothers is terrible at Switch. At least as far as, I don't know, it's different developers, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that the developer can maybe try to do something. But I do not expect Hogwarts on Switch to be a quality title.
The thing is that the next Switch, the Switch 2, which is basically confirmed at this point, it needs to have a beefier hard drive. Even half a terabyte would be an improvement, And those things are cheap. You can get an M2 half a terabyte for $20 now. It's insanely cheap, and they should be. Who cares if it's proprietary? Nintendo M2 SSD slot. Who cares? Just put some space on the damn thing, because here's the thing. Nintendo fans or Nintendo owners understand that they're not going to get bleeding edge graphics, and they don't need bleeding edge graphics. What they do need is hard drive space.
Yeah, and thankfully, most of the Nintendo games that have come out so far, I think the largest one I've seen is
Call of Duty. It's always Call of Duty.
That's probably the case. I haven't actually seen Call of Duty's file size on Switch, but I don't know. I would expect that it's not small. But as far as a first-party Nintendo game goes, they've been able to keep their stuff underneath 15 gigabytes for the most part. And I don't know. I agree with you that we definitely need bigger hard drives for the next one, because that almost the entirety of what's going on with the Switch is it's the most accessible and the most easy to carry about and buy and play system out there. But it also restricts the developers so much and makes them work so hard to get to pack everything into a Switch game.
Yeah, I mean, just like I said, just the M2 SDD. I'm pretty sure you can get it for $10 each in bulk. They're just insanely inexpensive now. And I know the law that says that the thing that says all data will fill a space. That's fine, but this is ridiculous. It reminds me of when the old Xbox 360 had those slots on the side for 16 gigabyte memory cards like you had on the Dreamcast. Whoever used those? I know I didn't. I'm pretty sure. It's just Switch. Just get half a terabyte. People will be ecstatic.
Mm-hmm. I really am holding out high hopes for the next Switch. I really hope that I don't think I can deal with a Wii U follow-up to the Switch. I think that would break a lot of hearts.
I don't know. Nintendo has this insane need to have some sort of hardware gimmick, and there's apparently going to be a hardware gimmick on the next one, whatever it is. Let's hope it's not too invasive.
Yeah, no kidding.
I saw where motion control is coming back, and it's like, why? Why bring back motion control?
I mean, they've never really gone away. We still have them on the Joy-Cons. They're just
Well, yeah, because they're backwards compatible with the Wii. I mean,
right. But I think just like, I don't know, they've always been back there lurking in the dark, not being necessarily used for every game, but still there.
at some point we'll have motion control that will do 1-to-1, and it'll be just fine. That was the problem with motion control. There was always a lag or a lack of able to register your movements. I think, I'm pretty sure if the technology was 1-to-1, you could do it as sort of like a bonus option, not make it mandatory. Because I'll tell you something, I do miss my Kinect. I do like being able to do voice commands on my. That's all I used it for in the Xbox One was voice commands. Xbox on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, look for our show notes at gamingpodcast.net along with industry news or gaming history articles. We enjoy feedback, so leave comments at our blog at gamingpodcast.net. Also, hit us up at facebook.com/gamingpodcast or try to iTunes. Subscribe to us on iTunes. Leave us iTunes comments. You can find me on Twitter at Jonah Falcon.
You can find me at Johnny Chugs.
And you can find Scott on Shard No More. We will see you next week.
Happy gaming, everyone.
Have fun, be cool, play games, y'all.